This is a demo of an idea that I've had for some time about how to do business logic using special purpose scripting. But in this case, I'm using a platform called Blockly, which is something developed at Google, primarily originally designed for teaching children programming. But it's so easy to use and it has so many benefits that I think it should be used by professional programmers as well, in particular, as I'm showing here, to develop business logic. So I've created special purpose blocks, as they're called, that are specifically designed for solving particular kind of business problems. In this case, in the financial industry, there is something called settlement days, which is the number of days that it takes after you buy or sell a security before you have to pay for it or you actually receive the securities. And there are business rules that are different for different institutions and for different securities and at different times that govern the number of settlement days. So first of all, we use this block, which is called settlement days, and it indicates that we're going to define the logic for settlement days. Next, I'm going to set a variable. I'm going to create a variable called cash clients. So notice that I don't have to follow any rules regarding setting variable names like you normally would in a programming language. I can just set it to anything, including embedded blank spaces. I'm going to set that variable to a list of clients. So I'm bringing in a tool that lets me specify clients according to their codes. So I'm going to put 3 clients in here that are considered cash clients. And these clients, they settle immediately. They don't have any delay between their agreement to purchase or sell securities and when the cash or the securities actually change hands. Next, I'm going to set, which is the result of this module, I'm going to create a variable called days, which is the number of settlement days. And that depends on a number of things, so I'm going to use a conditional to determine what that's going to be set to. So first of all, if a client, I'm creating a variable called client, is equal to cash clients, the variable that I created above, then the number of days, and here I'm just putting in a literal value, is 0. So there's 0 settlement days. But if they're not cash clients, then there's another condition here. We need to know the date, because if the transaction date, which is the date of the buy or the sell, is less than a certain date, which happens to be June 7th, 1995, then the number of settlement days, in this case, it's for most securities, such as stocks and most bonds, it's going to be 5 days before that date, but it's going to be 3 days after that date. And so this is it. Now, in reality, it's going to be a lot more complexity. You're going to have to make this depend on the securities type, because certain treasury bills settle in 0 days. They're always cash, and depending on, and money market funds may settle in 1, 2, or 3 days. And it's going to depend, those conditions are going to depend on the client. So there's more logic here, but this gives you an idea of how the business logic can be set using Blockley style specification. As you can see, there's a minimum of techie stuff here. You don't have to, we're really just creating a specification. You could use this, for example, just as a specification, take a screenshot of it, hand it to your programmers, and you have a more or less unambiguous description of the logic that you want. But you can go further than this. This is sufficiently well specified that it can be automatically translated into a program module which executes this logic. So you don't even need the programmer to sit down and type in a program. You can take a specification like this and automatically translate it into just about, well, any programming language to create a program module that executes this logic. So this solves a number of problems. First of all, a person who is not expert in programming can sit down and do just what I did and specify the logic of the program. And what's more important, this logic, in particular this calculation, it's going to change frequently. In my previous experience working for a company that did financial software, this calculation changed often several times a year. So that's a lot. That's a relative lot of program logic change to have to do. Almost all, well, in my experience with that client, all of the changes that were made during my time there could have been made without any changes to the structure of this. In other words, without any programmer involvement. They could have been done entirely by analysts manipulating a program like this. So it's efficient that way. But another thing is, this serves as a very good visual documentation of what the business logic is. In my experience, I often had questions where business analysts or clients would ask, what does the program do in this particular situation? And there was usually documentation, sometimes thorough documentation, but in my experience it was almost always out of date, incorrect, or wrong in some ways. This specification, because it's automatically translated into program logic, is always guaranteed, assuming you haven't made any errors in creating this platform. It always exactly reflects what the program does. You can easily, a typical kind of thing to do is say, okay, we have a new client and they're going to be a cash client. So that's all that's necessary to add that new client to this logic. So there's other benefits. It may be necessary to use this same calculation in a number of different platforms. It may be used in a mainframe application using one programming language. It may be used in PCs using a different programming language on a different platform. And so the same module and the same logic can be translated into different languages on different platforms and automatically without having a programmer sit down and specifically write the code for each one. And that guarantees that the same logic that's used in different platforms is always going to be the same. It also simplifies migration from one platform to another if it's necessary to rewrite this, at least so far as the program logic is concerned. You're going to get much more reliable results. So this is my idea, using what was originally developed as something for children to learn programming, and use it to specify and actually create programs that implement business logic professionally. In my opinion, all programming is ultimately going to go this way, and I think the days when people, at least large numbers of people, are doing a lot of text editing to create programs are numbered, and there's so many benefits to doing it with this block style of programming that I think ultimately we're all going to be programming using this model. Thank you for your attention.